a fire breaks out in your home, you have much less time to escape today than you did 30 years ago. The reason? The synthetic products that most of us have in our homes burn hotter and faster than the materials we used to use. Welcome to the Daily Download. I'm Travis Fain, and today's deep dive conversation is about house fires. Keely Arthur leads the Five on Your Side team here at WRAL, and she has seen this in action, been at a test fire. Welcome, Keely.
Great to be here, Travis.
So we're starting today with some calculations from the Underwriters Laboratory, right, which is a major risk and standards and product testing group. Keely, so walk us through what's changed in this area over the decades and what you saw on that test fire.
Right. So people will say like grandma or grandpa's furniture was made out of wood products. Now everything is particle board. I think of like IKEA, but it's everything. It's those lighter materials.
Cheaper, lighter.
And it's good. On some fronts, as a consumer, we want cheaper things. Life is expensive. But on the other hand, those things burn at a lower smoke point so they can catch on fire easily. And they burn eventually much faster, much hotter. And when you look around your home, I mean, in doing this story, my drapes are synthetic. The furniture, the TV stand synthetic. I mean, there's so many. My couch synthetic. And so all of that compared to your point about 3 decades ago is going to make things much more flammable.
And seeing is believing. Obviously, this is not a visual medium, but kind of describe for us, and you've got a story coming on this on WRAL. People can see it on TV. What was it like in person to watch that test fire burn?
So we partnered with the Morrisville Fire Department, and they, for educational purposes, set us up in a mock living room with a dresser that was kind of covered in lacquer, not for the purpose of the test, but that's just the way the dresser was. And then 2 different couches. They didn't use any fire starter or anything. They just lit the dresser on fire, and within 3 minutes, the couch was fully engulfed in flames. And then there was another couch that was made kind of with like a plasticky type fabric, and that had just melted. And this is kind of an aside, but one of the things that we talked about was a lot of children's clothing gets recalled often because it's made out of synthetic materials. And if, in a really serious situation, it could melt on a child. That's why you want to put your kids in cotton organic materials.
Was it shocking to watch the progression of the fire? I mean, you can think about a candle left unattended or something, and then how quickly?
Right. And that's exactly what they wanted to mimic. Just a candle, just a little flame, and how quickly that tiny flame can go to a total house fire. And it was scary. The firemen, I mean, they kept us back a ways, but they were in full gear. And my photographer and I were just kind of in our normal outfits. And it was scary. Like there was 30 seconds between the fire getting as big as it did and then putting it out with their hoses that I felt genuine fear because of how big it had gotten.
And did a camera melt? Did a GoPro camera melt?
Yeah, we did. We tried to get a few different angles for the shot so people could just see the progression in some different ways. The normal camera was fine. We were far back, but the GoPro that was inside the home eventually melted and fell to the floor. And I want to say for the test, in a real situation, everything's going to be enclosed. For us, we had the doors open so we could shoot into the home. So in reality, it would probably have burned even hotter.
And 3 minutes, right, is what I've seen this from the Red Cross. I've seen some Washington Post coverage. Once the flames are involved, once the fire is really going, you have about 3 minutes to get out of your house.
Yeah, and everything. I mean, it was like, it's crazy. It really does come in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. Now, you didn't just do this story out of the blue. There was a very specific fire that happened, I believe, in Alamance County back in November. Tell us about that.
And that was, I start this story, it was a fire with the most unusual of causes. And this is another aside, but when I was 13, our house was struck by lightning and burnt down. So I've always had some personal kind of interest. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it really, we were out of our home for months. And fires start in all kinds of different ways. This was very atypical. A person over in Alamance County, allegedly, we haven't talked to him, but we talked to the fire department in Burlington, took his clothing out of the dryer mid-cycle. It was still very hot, put the clothing on the bed, left for work and the clothing started to smolder on the bed and started a fire. He is still out of his home, I believe, right now, and that happened in November of last year.
Yeah, and I mean, that's normal behavior, right? We talk about don't leave the dryer running when you're not at home. So what do? You turn the dryer off. You take the clothes out. You put them on your bed. I'll deal with those later. But he had a jacket made of some sort of, I don't know if it was polyester, what sort of material, but there was a label on it that said, hey, don't dry. We've all seen that label.
Kind of ignore that label.
We often ignore it because we don't realize that, hey, it might smolder enough if it, that's scary stuff. And then it just started a fire that destroyed his bedroom.
Exactly. And yeah, two things. Read the label on your clothing. I know people kind of don't, and you just don't think these things are going to happen to you, but it happened. It happened near us. And then also make sure you have your dryer go through the full cycle, including the cool down cycle. We did a experiment for 5 on Your Side in addition to our Morrisville test burn where we took a temperature gun and opened my dryer mid-cycle, and the temperature of the clothing was about 144 degrees. If you do it after a full cool down, it's still really warm. It's 120 degrees, but those temperatures make a difference.
Yeah, it makes a difference. You can still get that kind of warmth. And I mean, why do we put the dry? Because my dryer doesn't always get everything dry the first time. So you run it a second time.
Again and again.
You're in a hurry.
Yep.
Or you just want to knock the wrinkles out of clothing and you don't think about it. So that can be scary stuff. A lot of house fires happen because of smoldering. Like a hot lamp falls on a blanket, eventually causes a flame that spreads. And then, if enough heat builds up, kind of boom, what you saw in that test fire.
Yeah, and it happens very often. The last two things I'll say about dryer safety, make sure your lint vent is clear. That it can really kind of cook the clothing and make temperatures much higher if that is clogged. Also, if you're someone who is a big cook, a big chef, or you work in a kitchen, having cooking oils on your clothing can also create a fire. So be wary of that.
Yeah, watch out for oil spots. And this guy who lost his home in this fire, he's a safety control officer, manages fire safety at work. This can happen to anyone. Luckily, he had one of those auto systems because he wasn't at home that calls the fire department.
And I will say, and the fire department is on record saying this, he had, surveillance, and you think, oh, it's a false alarm. He told the security company, ignore that. And then eventually they did call 911. But another thing, you just don't think this is going to happen. You always think it's a false alarm.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. Come back. We'll talk a little bit more about safety tips and what to do if that smoke alarm goes off. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the Daily Download. We're with Keely Arthur on the 5 on Your Side team. They do a lot of consumer product stories. You look at different things. Where this story about this fire and synthetics and how quickly a fire can spread in a modern home, where does this story rank on like a scale of, well, boy, I didn't know that, to, no, that makes sense. How surprising, I guess, was this story?
I don't know. I think it was very surprising in a way because when we do stories we do a lot of stories on scam, fraud, things that you think are kind of, when you're in your home, you feel like you're safe. And
right.
If you are smart on the internet and you feel like you can kind of keep the scammers out. With this stuff, these synthetic materials, they're in your home. I looked everywhere. It just created a lot more awareness for me for just how flammable things are. And also, I think we think in this day and age, there's a lot of testing, but that doesn't mean that it means your home's always going to be safe.
Yeah, I think one of the lessons to learn in life is that just because someone official has signed off on something does not mean that you are fully protected. And it certainly doesn't mean you're protected in a way outside of what the product was designed to do, right? I mean,
Exactly.
Which is why we talked about ignoring labels and chunking stuff in the dryer. It's so easy.
Don't be paranoid, but just, that extra awareness. This job has really helped me, I think, become a much more kind of vigilant person without going too crazy.
Yeah. Think things through. Let's do some safety tips. I've got some, but you start. Safety tips for fires.
Okay, so you just want to, the best plan, or, the best prevention is to have a plan. So make sure that the fire chief that we interviewed in Morrisville, he said, the first time an emergency happens does not want to be the first time that you are practicing how to handle it. So get together with your family and maybe monthly even say, okay, how would we handle this? As you mentioned, you only have 3 minutes to get out of your house when there's a fire at your house. So you need to be really quick and have a plan in the back of your head.
Yeah, have an escape plan, practice that escape plan, talk about it with the kids, not in a scary way, but if you talk about things in a certain way every now and then, it helps. Check those tags. No oil on your clothes. Check, as you said, your lint screen. But also, here's something I learned. Don't trust the lint screen. Have you ever pulled the lint screen and then put a flashlight down there? If not, you'll be amazed how much those lint screens do a lot less than you realize, which is why my mama, your mama, probably always told you, do not run the dryer when you are out of the house. That's good advice. We used to, when I was a Boy Scout, we used lint from the dryer. We would ball it up and use it as a fire starter.
Yeah. And they say that you should get that lint vent looked at yearly. So I know it's not another thing you want to add to your list, but it could be really useful.
Yeah, and you can also, at Home Depot, get one of those little snakes that kind of goes and cleans the area out, vacuum it out. Pay attention to it. Working smoke alarms on every floor of your home, including outside of every sleeping area. Here's something I learned. Sleep with your door closed.
Yes.
Because the smoke and the heat, I guess.
Yeah, you're gonna block some of the smoke, some of the heat from coming in if you have your door closed. And a lot of newer homes, like I live in a newer townhouse, that is outfitted with a sprinkler system. So while our homes are filled with more synthetic materials, there's also some more fire safety measures that are put in building codes and things like that. But just kind of be aware of how old your home is and act accordingly. A lot of older homes don't have open floor plans. Open floor plans can let a fire spread much more quickly.
Mm-hmm. And we should mention the products industry, kind of home furnishings. They note that they put like flame retardant chemicals into furniture now. So I mean, we're not trying to give anybody
which can also
idea.
Cause cancer. So there's all these kind of different things. And again, it's just awareness. And then one thing that was really interesting, we live in this day and age where we have so much of everything. And I love my mom, but I think she just wants to hold on to a lot of things. So our garage is filled with things at my parents' house. That is all kindling. That's all things that can catch on fire. So try to go through your home and in places that can kind of collect a lot of materials like garages, attics, and get rid of stuff that you can or donate it.
All right. Good advice. Thank you, Keely. Thanks for listening at home to the WRAL Daily Download and making us part of your morning. If you like what you're hearing, rate us, review us on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app you use. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email waiting for you in your inbox every morning with Triangle News, events, headlines. Get you ready for your day. Sign up for that at WRAL.com/newsletter.
Leave a comment and share this video with your friends. With daily uploads, there will always be a conversation.